Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Moons and Mythos with myself, your co-host, David Farrell, and my friend, astrologer and mythologist, Kelly Hunter. Hi, Kelly. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad we're closing in on the end of the year and the beginning of the new one.
For real, right? It's been quite the year. I definitely would put it in the category of humdinger. Certainly some moments have tested me and stretched me as much as I would like to be, particularly November. That eclipse season that we just came out of was a doozy, for real. But now the energy seems to have lifted a little bit in the last 3-4 days. It feels like we're moving into a different piece, feels more hopeful, more uplifting, but at the same time there's a strong sense of the train tracks separating and frequencies and resonances.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I agree with that. And this Mars retrograde is quite something to maneuver through. I find it. Yeah.
And how long is Mars going to be retroing in Gemini, just so that we're all fully aware of what's coming towards us?
Well, since the end of October, and then it's turning forward on January 12th. It's still in Gemini almost all the way through March.
Wow.
When Pluto goes into Aquarius, Mars changes sign and goes into Cancer.
Wow, big moment. So we are going to be looking today, of course, at the upcoming monthly cycle of the moon, with the new moon that's coming up in a few days' time on December the 23rd, the Capricorn new moon, and then the full moon in Cancer, which will be on January the 6th. So we already have a lot of big energies at work. We have the solstice and many other bits and pieces coming into play, including Jupiter entering Aries on that solstice, that Capricorn solstice. Yeah. But we've talked about that in some of the other shows. So today we're going to be looking at some of the other transits going on around the two new cycles, or the two, the new moon and the full moon. So where would you like to begin with this report for this preview, Kelly?
Well, that this new moon is really just 2 days after the solstice. And I do think that anytime the solstice or an equinox has like a new moon or a full moon, it is very invested in that new seasonal energy. And this is one of those times that this is the solstice new moon. And I think solstice is the beginning of the year, even when it's like doing that turnaround thing. This new moon, it just pops it into like forward, it's like, okay, now we're in it.
So I kind of think it's interesting that we have this powerful moment with the Capricorn solstice, which in the northern hemisphere is the winter solstice. And the reason I like this particularly is because we have this sense of going deep within. So if the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere is the sort of the peak of the light energy, this is, I wouldn't say the peak because it's the wrong word, but it's the apex of the inward journey into the womb, into the place of creation. And we then have those 3 days of stillness between the solstice and Christmas Day, or really what is the return of the light or the return of the sun. And then we have this new moon that's right in the middle of that. And it's like in that space of 3 days of, you could say darkness in some ways, or 3 days of stillness, in the middle of it, we have this powerful opportunity to set tuning fork for the year and send our arrows super strong in this year. I feel like this could be the biggest arrows we've ever fired, because this is all about firing an arrow for new earth. So let's get into the energy of the new moon in Capricorn and talk a little bit about that, and perhaps we can bring up the chart so that our audience can have a look at it too.
Yes, I've got 2 versions of each chart in order to share different aspects of it. And, you were saying this new moon is right in the middle of those dark days, and a new moon is a dark day. So right. There we are, then the moon starts to wax and then it wanes again. We don't have another new moon until January 21st. So this cycle we're talking about today goes through that whole time frame. And yeah, it's in Capricorn, and there are 3 more planets in Capricorn: Venus and Mercury and Pluto. So there's a lot of Capricorn. Add in Uranus in Taurus, we got a lot of earth energy here. So this is very grounding, and make it so. May it be so.
Please.
Yeah, the turning point, kind of we go across the new year. Now, one thing I found very interesting about this moon cycle is there's only one planet that changes sign between this new moon and the next new moon, and that's Venus, who will be going into Aquarius. And so I think tracking Venus is quite significant here. And she's always a good ally to follow because she's the goddess of love. She's the goddess of resonance, of aesthetics, and, great guide for our joy and happiness. Venus takes us on the beauty path. So that's, I think, a strong factor. And Venus is in the degree that the sun will be in on the full moon on January 6th. So there's a really interesting dynamic here between what's going on with these, the stellium, this 3-part stellium in Capricorn, and what's going on over here in Cancer, which includes Black Moon Lilith. This is true Black Moon Lilith, opposite Venus. So this adds a very interesting dimension of the cosmic feminine that wants to take us through our hearts into the Black Moon, spacious sky, feminine energy. And it's echoed in the full moon that we will experience in 2 weeks after this new moon. And then we've got a visitation from an asteroid named Pallas Athena, who has a great rich mythology. But the thing is, she has a kind of wisdom not unlike the Black Moon. So this is a very interesting wisdom pair of the divine feminine and the great mother aspect of that is kind of overshadowing and helping bring in the softening, nurturing energy in relation to the Capricorn that can be, kind of, demanding at times, but also, Capricorn is actually a feminine sign. So I think of it as Mother Mountain. So,
okay.
But the earth and the water, the earth needs the water or it gets awful dry and can't be productive. And vice versa, the water needs some shorelines to guide it. And all the water signs are present here in various ways. In the Cancer, in the Neptune, so strong in its own sign, Pisces, Jupiter has just left and gone into 0 Aries. And then we have the north-south node still in Scorpio with this kind of let the water go under the bridge and out the, out the estuary, and because we're heading into new territory here. And here we have Haumea in Scorpio, who's very active in this moon cycle, and even more so the next one. Haumea went into Scorpio on November 12th. We may remember, and so closely after that, the Hawaiian volcanoes started erupting. And there's Haumea. She is the Hawaiian goddess of childbirth, and she's the mother of Pele, the volcano goddess. So there was some messaging coming through there very, very strongly. And Haumea is in a really nice alignment with this new moon, very supportive, another, kind of fertilizing energy, we could say, in this new year that's being birthed now.
Wow. Okay. So quite a bit there. I'm trying to make notes to keep up because you already picked out 4 or 5, maybe 6 different transits. So the first one I want to just to clarify, because maybe not all of our audience necessarily watched our piece that we did with the Artemisias and the Black Moon Lilith. So for those who didn't, can you just reiterate in sort of simple terms the difference between the true Black Moon Lilith and the mean Black Moon Lilith? Because there's an important difference here, right?
Yes, it's a very mysterious aspect. It's very nuanced, it's very subtle. And in general, the Black Moon has to do with the way the moon goes around the earth. If it were a perfect circle, there would be one center. It's elliptical. And there are 2 focal points, as they're called, in the mathematics of an ellipse. So the Black Moon represents that. Now it moves back and forth quite a lot, forward and retrograde several times a month. So that would be the true black moon, if we're naming that retrograding back and forth, it does it pretty quickly. The mean average motion forward through the zodiac is the mean black moon. Right. So they can be up to 30 degrees apart. And we've gotten interested, you and I, in where they kind of meet and, you know, kind of have a very strong kind of laser focus together. And we had one of those points the day after the last full moon on December 7th. They aligned on the 8th. And they aligned on the 19th of December as well. Now we see the black moon here in Cancer, and that's largely the sign it's in, but it just so happened on the 19th, it was like Cancer Leo cusp, like right between the sunshine sign and the moonlit sign. And I just find that really interesting that that happened so close to the solstice here. And then we have another one of those on January 7th, the day after the full moon again. And then we have one right on the next new moon. So yeah, these are our focal points where the mean and the true line up. And so the difference in interpretation is still, you know, experimental in my, we could call it casual research, but it definitely is intriguing and very subtle. So
just to clarify, just again, so it's nice and clear. So the true moon is actually the movements back and forwards. And as we've said, it can be this elliptical point. It can be very wild, up to 30 degrees different from the mean, which moves at a much more steady sort of a degree by degree, right?
Yeah.
So what we discovered during the Artemisia, what we discovered during the Artemisia immersion is that there are certain days where the true and the mean are exactly in the same place, which is what you've just been talking about. And what we came to realize is that's almost like a hidden portal, again, higher note of the moon. It's like a hidden portal of alignment that when we're aware of it, we can step into that portal, that vertical alignment, and actually work with it. And having seen the dates, because I wasn't aware of the 8th, and I'm just thinking back to what happened on the 8th, and that was a very powerful day when a whole bunch of stuff just happened here. So these are important days, and they're not something that are widely known, or possibly even known much beyond us, because I don't think anyone's ever talked about this before.
But I haven't heard one either, but I'm sure that some people like look at that. But it is a portal. I love that you said that, because it's like they're aligned. It's such a such a short time. And it's like, you know, you can go into a different state of consciousness, because this is the black moon is about Buddha's spacious mind. It's like no judgment, whatever it takes to blow your mind. And so that's a portal, right? That's a portal. And this combination has that added wisdom, like, you know, kind of wisdom transmission energy. And it's informing Venus, our hearts, and Mercury, our minds. And then Mercury is going to conjunct Pluto, like in just a few days here, get close enough, but it goes retrograde at 24 Capricorn on the 29th of December. And so Mercury is retrograde as we head across the new year calendar date. Conjunct Pluto. So this is a real change of mind, and is suggesting, because Pluto has to do with the transformation of the collective consciousness that's going on, that Mercury is picking up on this, and there may be news about that, or it may kind of give us different points of view, which Mars in Gemini retrograde is also doing. So there's a lot of mental twists and turns going on here that is going to be a very deep investigation with that Mercury-Pluto conjunction.
Wow. So I think this is something just to worth amplifying a little bit, because it seems to me very much part of the piece we're in. So we've got this kind of very active Mars in Gemini, currently in retro until I think somewhere in early January. Then it stays in Gemini anyway until March. And but then at the same time, we've got this kind of Plutonian Mercury questioning energy of like questioning what's at the peripheral of our vision. Then we're getting these two Gemini sort of possibilities. One is this truth, another one is this truth. So where does Neptune fit into all of this? Because I feel like Neptune is the hidden piece that's making all of this a little difficult to pin down.
Well, when Mars went retrograde at the end of January, it was the same time that Jupiter retrograded back into Pisces, and they were squaring each other. So this is like, you know, Neptune makes it a little hard to figure out. It's sort of foggy, it's misty, it's confusing. You know, Neptune is the planet of illusion, confusion, delusion. But on the high side, it's like tuning in on another level. There's another frequency, there's another like vibrational field. And Pluto, I mean, Uranus, Neptune is so strong in Pisces, and it had Jupiter amplifying the whole thing for a bit. Now Jupiter's moved out of that, and it's lighting up the next pathway forward and making it an option. You know, Mars in Gemini loves options, all kinds of possibilities. And that's going to coincide with that Plutonian Mercury retrograde that also can really change our minds around. It's going to be very challenging in that kind of way, the information that's coming out, and to try to figure out what is really going on in those transformational process that we're in, even as Pluto's getting ready to start into Aquarius. So it's like, whoa, it's like cutting through. And that portal, we need that portal because that portal invites us into spacious mindedness. No, don't use your mind, use your heart, use something, that spiritual spark, use, you know, listen to that, because, and be open to it. The challenge of Cancer sometimes can be receptivity. Because sometimes Cancer, like, I don't want to hear that. And here's these beautiful black moon wisdom asteroid palace saying there's wisdom here, welcome it, be open to it, receive it. This is a gift to you. This is to help you kind of get out of your mind that's already just going around back and forth with this Mars in Gemini, so that you can tune in to more of what is really needed, as well as, and needed on a level that is much deeper than just, you know, I need food to eat. Yes, we do, but we need this spiritual input and the spiritual grace that's coming in with this Neptune, beautiful Neptune energy. And let's not let our mind interfere with that. Let's just let it come.
Wow, perfect. And speaking from personal experience, and I'm not sure how our audience would feel about this one, but for me, a lot of the difficulty of the November period was when Mars was squaring Neptune. It felt super foggy, very difficult to connect into the third eye or crown chakra places, a lot of interference coming out of the fog of the eclipse. Energetically speaking, and that now feels like it's cleared with Mars sort of retroing away from that square with Jupiter. But I'm wondering, when does Mars go direct and again go into that square, just so I know what's coming towards me, so I can mark out that part of my diary as a no-go.
It goes direct at on the 12th at 8:08 of Gemini. I love it.
8:08 of Gemini. Wow.
8:08 of Gemini. And it doesn't get back to squaring Neptune until March.
Wow.
Right around when Saturn is going into Pisces. And then it finally changes sign like a couple of days after Pluto goes into Aquarius on the 23rd of March, and Mars goes into Cancer on the 25th of March. Another very powerful equinox, spring equinox or fall equinox for the Southern Hemisphere. But these equinoxes have been quite something the last while, you know, and this one has, you know, Jupiter already opening the door again.
Right.
And, you know, Manwë, our beautiful, like, you know, kind of mind of God, you know, kind of original creator energy, you know, archangelic energy coming in as well. It goes into Aries again on the 30th of January. So that will be in the next, in the next moon cycle.
So, I mean, I've been listening to quite a bit of astrology from a number of different people, and obviously we've been talking to, and I did the piece with Pam recently for the solstice, and what I keep hearing is that we've got a big focal point of energy right now in the next couple of weeks, and then with the solstice kind of tuning fork energy that leads us through into the equinox in the spring or in the fall, depending where you are in the world, it feels like there's another big moment there where there's another big shift. And what I would like to suggest is right now we're being invited into the creative energy. And it isn't a case of, well, if I just leave it a month or two, I can catch up down the road. It's like, no, this is the moment. And perhaps for those of us that are not following those higher inspirations, there's another big turning in the spring, which is like, okay, now we're going to really bring the energy of change, and either you're prepared for it, you've made your new earth vision start to manifest, or you've been caught on the back foot because you weren't paying attention. So I don't know, it just feels to me that the energy of the early part of this year, or sorry, the latter part, the end of this year and the early part of next year, is urging us to kind of disengage from the chaos, the Gemini mind, which one is the truth, this one or that one, I think I believe both of them today and neither of them tomorrow. You know, in amongst some of the other energies that we've had with the Neptune squaring Mars, which was super foggy, difficult to see. And now that's all clearing. It's like, certainly from my own point of view, suddenly clarity has come. It's not that I didn't have clarity before, but it was difficult to see through that Neptunian fog really that we had for a while, with Mars in the background stirring everything up. There was a lot of hidden energies. It's the way I would put it. And I like Neptune in Pisces. I am Pisces rising, and it's been hovering around my ascendant for a while, but that's also can be challenging. So I'm kind of looking forward to this passing of the baton. That's what I keep feeling, is when we get to the springtime, it's a passing of the baton with those, you know, planets moving on into new signs, big planets, outer planets. So I'm excited, but maybe I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe that's a show for next year. Just there was something else I wanted to pick out there. So Venus is moving into Aquarius. Maybe that's jumping into the full moon. So before we move on, is there anything else you wish to say about the new moon, Kelly, before we look at the full moon?
Well, the Jupiter moving, well, we'll see it on the full moon getting stronger in with Celestia, the mermaid who makes the sunlight to sparkle on the sea. You know, she glitters. She shows us, you know, the photon activity that we're in the middle of. And I know Pam talks about that a lot. And I love her phrase, liquid light. I think that is lovely. And she's also like the sparkle of crystals. You know, like in an earth sign, and in a fire sign, there she is, the sparks of life. And Chiron is there, and that's what I wanted to also introduce to begin with, because this trio here is pretty much squaring this new moon. And so this new moon is really influenced by this new initiative. So like you say, it's clearing up. So it's not ready to totally, you know, they're green lights as we go into January, they're green lights. Well, we'll look at those in a second, but Mercury going retrograde, I think that is so important. It's almost like Mars retrograde in Gemini. It's like rethinking. It's like putting the pieces together in a different way, working with the practicality of Capricorn. So this isn't the same as Mars trying to like get your thoughts together. This is more like Capricorn getting ready to move along in a grounded way that is practical and, you know, gets us where we want to go. So Mercury is just giving us a little detour to make sure we're tuning into this deep place, not kind of going to a superficial choice point, but really investigating, where am I now? And again, where do I want to head for the new year? We could say it's New Year's resolutions. And, you know, Capricorn is a pretty resolved sign. So are you going to do it or are you not? You need a path you can commit to. And Gemini is not a very committed sign. It's very ambivalent until you feel a total yes. If it's wishy-washy or ambivalent, no, don't even go there. Don't pluck that, piece. This is like, go deep, let it come from deep, recognize it from a deep, deep place. This is going to work. This is useful. This is not going to work. I don't want to take that into this new year with me. And that's where Venus becomes the best guide. And the one planet that changes sign and follows the track Pluto will take when it moves from Capricorn into Aquarius.
Okay, so let me just sort of paraphrase that so that I've got it clear in my own mind too. So Mercury is going to retro back through Capricorn until which date?
Pardon?
When does Mercury? Yeah.
So it goes retrograde on the 29th and it turns forward on the 18th, 19th of January. And, so
interesting.
Mars turns forward on the 12th. Mercury turns forward. Oh, and we said Mars turns retrograde at 8:08 of Gemini. Mercury turns forward at 8:09 Capricorn on the 18th. And then a couple of days, like basically on the next new moon, Uranus turns forward. Those are like green lights. It's like one green light. It's like all the lights turn green in January. It's like you have one light turning green after another. So it's all forward motion.
So it's a bit like when you hit those traffic streams and if you get one green light, you're going to get 6 in a row. And if you get one red light, you're going to get 6 in a row, right? And so it's all
that's how I was visualizing it. Yeah. So it's a go, go, go kind of energy.
So maybe if I can just kind of, in my own layperson's way to understand this, so with Mercury retroing back through Capricorn, Capricorn to me is often about the top of the mountain. It's about mastery. I feel like Mercury is asking us to look at where our mastery is and, to really investigate that deeply and look at it and say, what is it that I'm good? What is it I enjoy doing? What is it that I put my life towards? What is it that I'm about? And then how do I take that forwards in a new way, maybe evolving it or adapting it into a new earth kind of situation when those green lights go green? Am I ready to go green or has the battery gone flat or is there a flat tire, and do I have to get out the car and spend time repairing that whilst everybody else in the, the other lanes have gone forwards? And I think that this is an important point to remember about retrogrades from my own experience, is that they give us a chance to review before we go forwards again.
We need a little time just to okay, what happened this year? And what are we letting go of? Because we're still shedding with that South Node in Scorpio, and then there's the inspiration of Jupiter back in Aries. Okay, the new thing. What's the new thing? And letting go. And what's the plan? Capricorn is a planner. It likes outlines. It likes planning. It likes. Here's the itinerary, let's start on it. And if we have to change the plan as we go along, which we're most likely to have to do, Mars is in Gemini, then, we at least have a starting point and we can take it from there.
Right. So I think this is, again, to me, when I think about the energies of what's coming up right now, and again, being asked to be in a place of planning, not a sort of wishy-washy, airy-fairy sort of, I'd like to do this. Maybe when everything goes back to normal, I'll be able to, and I'll start doing this. And I hear so many kicking down the road expressions that always seem to be putting it somewhere down the road. I'm like, well, why is everybody waiting? It to me feels like this is a moment of action, but also we've got this kind of opportunity to make the action into our plan, but then to review the plan before it's all systems go in January. And so I see that as being the period between the 25th and the end of the year as a sort of a week to 10 days of time to really reflect on things up until the end of the Mercury retrograde, if we want. And then it's sort of go, 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 go. And are you ready to activate your visions or not? And I'm excited. I think this is still a challenging time for the astrological movements. But as always, if we can take the higher notes and steer our canoe through the turbulent waters, then we can, hope to expect to come out the other side looking in good shape, and not only in good shape, but having survived the storm and seeing our sort of adventurous horizon on the timeline. And, and I was talking with Shirley about this earlier, the artist, Lemurian Dreamweaver, who's very Piscean and watery. And we were just reflecting on the very pioneering energy that feels available right now if we have the bravery and courage to step out of our comfort zone onto our Viking boat or our boat of exploration, heading off towards the horizon, really with just a map with just a few bits and pieces on it, but mostly a sense of adventure and trust. And I feel that's where we are right now.
Yeah, remember that Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song, Wooden Ships? And there had been a war and people were meeting, and it's like we were on the opposite sides, but hey, can I share your berries, And then they're pushing off on the boat, they're pushing off and they're heading into the unknown. They're heading into the new world with former enemies, all, and not that we're former enemies with anybody necessarily, but the Aquarian aspect of it also that's opening up even more with Venus going into Aquarius is, who are we with heading into the new year? Who is on that same adventure? We're going to find, new people, right? There's going to be a lot of newness, a lot of excitement, a lot of new things opening up that can change the way that we're going to go forward, and what we have to use. So there's Capricorn. What do you need to take with you? You don't want to carry a whole lot of stuff.
You're right, but planning and provisions are something that we've been talking about on some of the other podcasts, and this idea of an arc, setting sail on your arc into the new earth, I think is an important one. And we don't necessarily need the cataclysmic flooding of the time of Noah, but the sort of the analogy I think is really suitable. Is like if the emotional waters rise, if the actual waters rise, and we need to be set, what is our plan? What happens if we lose power or food or something, even for just a week or 2 weeks, which is quite possible given the noise coming from the illusory world out there. There are many sort of things suggesting this might happen, maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. But if it does happen, are you prepared? Is your arc set? Have you made a plan? Do you have your grains and beans in the cupboard?
Do you have your flashlight? Do you have your can opener? Do you have like all the things you're really going to need? Right. and that's part of the Cancer over here. And again, this echoes the full moon coming up. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. And we're going to jump forward into the new year, January 6th, full moon. So This is the opposition we were looking at, the Cancer, and there's the moon in Cancer with the wisdom of Pallas Athena and the portal point of the black moon, because this is the mean is at 29. This is like right on that, and they're about to go into Leo, so it's going to have a different flavor soon. But this is a really, great goddess energy. It really is. And again, what you need to be open and receptive to receive it. It's an active receiving. Cancer's not just laid back waiting for something to happen. It's a cardinal sign. It reaches out. Yes, please bring it in. Yes, please, I'm open to your invitation. And then we have the sun over here where Venus was on the new moon, 16 degrees. And there's the Mercury retrograde coming right back to align with the sun. This is so this would be the next day, January 7th, looks like it would be the day when Mercury is aligned with the sun. And this is like, forget retrograde. It doesn't mean anything that day. It's like Venus aligning with the sun, and it's an instant perception of knowing and a very grounded energy with that Capricorn. I need this, here it is. I have this, do you need it? Here. It's that kind of beautiful, it's like stones in the water, it's like makes a pathway. And then there's Pluto toward the end of Capricorn there, and there is Venus newly in Aquarius with this beautiful factor. Now this is Characlo. A lot of people have fallen in love with Characlo, who married Chiron. And she has her own very special healing gift, which is about holding space for whatever needs to happen for the potentially best outcome, and holding it all through the Mercury retrograde, which is going all the way back to 8 degrees. So this is like the Mercury on the sun point is the halfway through the Mercury retrograde. And so, yeah, Venus and Characlo, oh, how beautiful. This is social harmony. This is more like what I was just saying. If you don't have it, somebody probably has it and will share it with you. This is the larger social context. And this is feeling a kind of joy that something is opening up that can keep us all together. We're all together here. There's a level of harmony. And there's Saturn in Aquarius also still. So the Aquarian energy is, it's another stepping stone into that Capricorn into Aquarius moment that Pluto will have in March. So yeah, Characlo, in there's not too much mythology about her, but I came across some story where she was a river mermaid and she fell in love with Chiron. And in order to be with him, she shapeshifted from a half woman, half fish to a half woman, half horse to be with him. So she has a shape-shifting quality of whatever form best serves love. So this is with Venus here, there is like some incredible harmony that can really be evoked and manifest on a social level here that is very interesting these few days around the full moon.
So to loop back a little bit, so we've got, as you said earlier, on January the 7th, we have one of the Black Moon Lilith alignment days, which is the day after this. And you were saying that this is the true is at 28 and the mean is at 29 on that day.
Yeah.
So by the following day, the two will be conjunct, but they're going to be then in pretty much a direct opposition to Pluto.
Yeah. Yes.
So can you tell us a bit more about that? That seems like an interesting, very hidden, very esoteric, very witchy. Yes.
I'm coming across more charts lately where people have Black Moon opposite Pluto, which I haven't considered very much, but here we go. So Pluto is a level of transformation of the collective consciousness in Capricorn. So that's the overlying structures and forms are no longer serving love, for instance. Right. And so the Black Moon is saying there's a portal beyond this that you can invite in to reframe the energy and the transformational capacity that it's the bridge has burned behind us. There's no going back to what we used to call normal. So we need to push off into the next energy. And it's like the tide is shifting here. There's a tidal shift and the boat is like loosened from its mooring and it's heading out whether you're on it or not.
Right, like we were just talking about the ark setting off, and famously Noah's Ark didn't have any sail, didn't have any oars. It was really just a tank that was sealed in, and it didn't matter if it got spun upside down, it still would float and survive. And whilst I'm not saying that we necessarily need to go to that length right now, I think the motif is important. But and I'm sorry again for the noise in the background. Today is the celebrations of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's a big day in Mexico.
That's right. That's Black Moon, that's aligned with the Black Moon. The day of that, the December 12th and whatever 1500s that was, that there was a very strong Black Moon alignment. And there was Luis Lasur, who was a Mexican astrologer who died some years ago, wrote a book about that, how the Black Moon is aligned with Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Wow, if you have a link to that, I'd love to be able to share that and possibly try and get hold of the book myself. It sounds fascinating, but
I'm not even sure it's in print, but it's in Spanish in any case.
Well,
I love that you brought that up because that does have an evocation, and she was a mystery too. And I think, one of the few sort of like Black Madonna energies in the Western world.
Kind of, I guess. Yeah. So without diversing too much into the fireworks and the bombs going off in the background here, which has been a theme of the last 2 days in all of the recordings I've done, I love the idea of what you just said. And again, I feel like this whole alignment portal that we've got with the Black Moon Lilith aspects opposing Pluto feels like it's urging us to step into that portal space, to step beyond these structures and forms that we've had before.
Also. Judgments that we make on these things, so we can tune into the form that is most appropriate, you know, and not be attached, which Cancer can be. Don't get attached with Black Moon there into what needs to happen, not what you are trying to hold on to and push forward. You know, this whole letting go thing is really, really big.
It is really big, and at the risk of sounding like a stuck record, I think it's worth emphasizing again that the more that we're attached to, the more that we're being held back by those attachments, and they can feel a little heavy. And I think all of these very strong, but often more esoteric oppositions and conjunctions we've been having with Black Moon Lilith, and in this case with Pluto, which to me feels very esoteric, it's almost again asking us to step into that portal of the Viking boat of exploration without even a map. We're just going to head west, and we're going to keep heading west until we find something, and whatever it is we find, that's what we're going to, you know, that's where we're going to be, and then we're going to make the best of that, whatever that is. And I love that pioneering energy that is very available to us right now, but it does require a certain amount of strength and courage. And I'm wondering, is there anywhere in the astrology of this next moon cycle that gives us that strength and courage to pull down?
Yes, well, Mars journeying forward is big because it's just a few days after this full moon. But I also wanted to say, what did I want to say? The moon, it was about Cancer. Cancer is the best sign if you're moored on a deserted island, because Cancer is going to make a shelter. It's going to find the food. You know, you want Cancer there. So here's that invitation. Now, here's the other thing is, so this full moon at 16 Cancer, Capricorn is squared by Chiron.
Ooh.
So Chiron in Aries, this is the new way. It's more of an invitation. It's amplifying, especially in the company of Jupiter that makes things larger. It's amplifying, you know, the way forward and blazing a new trail. It's the new pathway, and it's healing, and it's got the liquid light, it's got the sparkle, it's got the frequency, heightening frequency of Celestia here in this beautiful cluster, this trio in Aries. And so that really influences the moon. We saw it on the new moon where Jupiter was squaring. On this full moon, Chiron is squaring and, you know, really inviting us into this like healing energy and new healing modalities that we can pull in from the quantum. Right. And this would be the light. This would be the fractals. This would be the sound and light that are part of this. And so let me show you the second chart I have for this full moon, because it includes Manwë there, still at the very far edge of Pisces. Like I said, it's January 30th when Manwë enters the 0 Aries and works with Jupiter. And because they're such a pair, I always like to look at Varda when I talk about Manwë. And Varda is at 2609 Sagittarius. It's entered the zone of the galactic center, the heart of the Milky Way galaxy. And this is about truth and freedom and the light. You know, the center of the galaxy is generating the creative possibilities that anything could happen. So we go back to Mars. What do you want to happen? Not that you're not ambivalent about. That you're listening to this volcanic eruption of Haumea from very deep inside, that is generating and regenerating, like the magma, like earth on fire that's coming out of a volcano will eventually cool and make new land. And new things can grow out of this mineral rich, cooled soil, even though it seems to have a destructive aspect. And what I've been saying for a while, because Haumea is already in Scorpio. And when Pluto goes into Aquarius, they're going to square again, like they were doing in Libra Capricorn. So there's this new energy continuing to arise. And Haumea here is squaring Venus in Aquarius. So Venus already squared Haumea a few days before this full moon. And if we remember back to September, when there was a Venus star, Venus in Libra, with Haumea right in there, Venus and Haumea have a resonance that's very strong. And so Venus is already saying, hey, Pluto, I'm checking it out over here. This is a great space. Come on over.
I like that. So, as you were saying all of that, it was making me think about the sort of the volcanic fires within. And of course, a volcano when it erupts can be incredibly destructive initially, but then as anyone who's been to a volcanic area, like even like Iceland, it's a land of fire and ice, and it's constantly reforming itself. And sometimes some areas of the land are lost and redeveloped, and sometimes they stay stable. But rather than have an uncontrolled explosion from within that could end up in all kinds of chaos, we can dare to try to channel the fires within through our own toroidal fields, which is what we're going to be doing on the U immersion that we're starting tomorrow. And as I've talked about with Pam, we are a fractal toroidal field of the toroidal field of Mother Earth, and so on and so on and so on. But if we have a misaligned central channel or connection, then that fire can erupt and go all over the place. And if it's got Mars behind it, it can be a little kind of whoa, dramatic. But if we can control the fire within, we can use that creative forces that come from deep within Mother Earth, Haumea, moving into Scorpio, death and rebirth, transformation, right? We can really work with that energy and create something new. And I love there's so many possibilities in the astrology over the next 2 months for us to really step into our creative higher minds.
That's so edgy. And she's going back into Libra in a few months. But right now, also on this full moon, look, we found that Lilith point. Here's the mean, here's the true, here's the mean, right on that cusp of Leo. This isn't like exact. This is moving into that. It's like right the day after, right? Basically on that 0 Leo cusp, squaring Haumea. Haumea is really, engaging, with a lot of the energies at play. So I just love that, she's working with Venus right now. Venus is, also has that black moon with Pluto there, this Venus Pluto. Now, remember last year, we went across the New Year date with Venus retrograde having been conjunct Pluto. And now we have Mercury doing that. So there's just the intertwined of the cycles, here's Pluto, it's like the undertow pulling out the foundations that we've been living on. And there's Haumea coming in with this like fiery lava, new stuff. Are you passionate about it? Are you feeling it? Are you going there?
Wow. And then on top of that, like we said, we've got this kind of vortex portal day, which is the following day, with all of this energy completely present. And if we're in that portal space in a clear toroidal field, it's one big alignment for us to channel that, creative energy of Haumea, but with that energy of Venus in Aquarius. I'm just like, that feels like a big piece right there on the 6th, 7th, I guess, probably for a couple of days.
What you said, with the whole toroidal field, because if that's a fractal, the Earth has a toroidal field. All of the planets have toroidal fields. So this is a different movement than we're used to thinking of. And this might be part of, say, like Mercury you know, retrograde conjuncting Pluto, like what? The Earth isn't a globe, it's a toroidal field, like what? You know, and we've got the North and South poles, which are migrating. And so there's such an energetic shift. It's very, very potent. And I had a realization the other day that basically we can, like, Pluto's almost already in Aquarius. It's gotten close enough where we've been feeling this, and we've had Jupiter and Saturn go into Aquarius. And like at the beginning of March last year, Venus and Mars went across that Capricorn Aquarius cusp together. And now we've had what are we saying? We've had this Manway changing Haumea with a cusp. But yes, the Varda and the Manway are just so like deeply ancient, you know, and, you know, creating the original blueprints from the mind of God, as Manway, you know, did. And here's Varda at the same time as Manway's going into the 0 point at the galactic center, pulling right from the center of our galaxy. You know, that's just incredibly glorious. And they do represent, Varda is sound and Manway is light.
Wow. And you know what, it's just reminding me of one of my favorite plants, which is fireweed, which is first of all my trauma imprint removal plant, but it's also my blueprint plant. And when I'm doing clearing in an energy field for somebody, if I'm removing imprints of trauma or what I call bad memory files, then, you know, whatever something is removed, it needs to be repatterned. And so fireweed is a plant that repatterns for growth. But in combination with lady's mantle and mugwort, we've created a special essence, which is called the womb creation team, or the manifestation team. And I feel that this energy we've got around January the 6th is the perfect time to be working with those 3 plants. And you can find out more about that on quantumplанthealing.com. But very quickly, you know, the inspiration from the higher mind comes down, and we want to put it into our gestation space, the creative womb space. And in that space, then the energy first of all needs to be received into a clean space, and the womb space is often, whether it's physical or metaphysical, is often contaminated. And we can see from the Industrial Revolution that many of us have been born with heavy metal poisoning due to toxified womb spaces in our mother's wombs, not for any fault of their own, but just through generational. So that space needs to be clean so that our higher mind visions can come into a place to be gestated, which is where Lady's Mantle, or Alchemilla, steps in. She is the alchemist who turns that higher mind energy into something tangible that can then be birthed with the midwife, which is mugwort, a midwifing plant, into 3D reality. And I feel that this full moon, if we've been working with that kind of, if we work with that new moon energy of Capricorn with these plants and this kind of mentality, then by the time we get to January the 6th, it's like, whoa, okay, it can start to bloom and manifest with all of these creative energies we've got. I think it's incredible.
Cancer's the womb energy, you know, Cancer's right. The Cancer's the womb energy and that gives birth. It's a birthing, nurturing, caring sign. And just it brings in just what we need. And Chiron is saying, heal those attachments to the past, heal those things that are holding you back, just what we said earlier. But the way you were talking about working with the plants and doing this, this is the moment. It really is a perfect full moon for that. And that Mercury also, the next day when we have that Lilith portal, Mercury is going to be on the sun, in alignment with the sun. So that too is like an instant perception. And then, you know, the day after, a couple of days after, Mars goes forward, and we know much more clearly what we want and what our energy wants to do.
Wow, it's amazing. And if we could just go back to the previous slide, I just want to ask you something as a technical note, because I'm still not familiar with all of the symbols. So is Salacia the one that looks a bit like the shell petrel motif?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a shell. In this program, that's the symbol I use. People have different symbols.
Right, which is why I just wanted to check that. So what I'm getting with this, which is really a sort of almost a mini stellium of three planets, all you know, working in conjunction with each other. So we've got Jupiter expanding the liquid light of Salacia so that those wounds that Chiron still has can finally be released with that liquid light that's coming in. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, Jupiter's going to be on Salacia somewhere around the beginning of February.
Wow.
I mean, February. And that's going to be a really beautiful new moon to contemplate too, that January 21st moon.
Wow. And, it's almost interesting on this January the 6th, I often look at these sort of balancing points, and Salacia is almost exactly between the middle of both Jupiter and Chiron. And, with Salacia so close to her husband, I feel that's also another symbol of the new earth, which is masculine and feminine, healed and in balance. And,
wait, I'm sorry, where did you get her husband thing? She's married.
Didn't you say that? I know, sorry, it's Charoclo, isn't it? I'm getting them mixed up.
But Charoclo is really in a very nice alignment with that. But yeah, she's, I think of Charoclo and Salacia in a kind of similar way.
Maybe that's why I got them mixed up. But
yeah, I do think so.
So they are in a transit with each other. Is that a square that they're in, or what are we looking at here between?
It's a sextile, 60 degrees. Yeah, air and fire are compatible elements, so they're in a sextile.
So what we've got is Salacia in a sextile with Charoclo sitting between Jupiter and Chiron. Interesting.
So this beautiful trio here, Chiron in Aries is new healing modalities, inventing new healing modalities. Salacia is saying with frequency, with light. And this is a level of consciousness as well. And Jupiter is saying, yep, these things are coming out and you can do it too. So if we're receptive to like this possibility, if we're not judging like, oh, this could never happen, people could do this in the past, why can't we do it again? It's like renewal on a very deep level. So it's being receptive, like this is, the energies that are coming in. Please let me be receptive to what is possible and being open to possibilities I would never have thought of before. So this is a beautiful, just like, it's like catching a falling star and putting it into your pocket kind of energy, but you're not going to put it into your pocket. You're going to use it.
Right. And I think that's another important analogy. It's like, rather than trying to hold on to things, which has been a motif of the hoarding human for quite a long time. It's like, I remember one of my teachers, my geomancy teacher, Dr. Patrick Maname, talking to me about money. And he said, the funny thing about money is it's just energy. And he says, when people try to hoard it, it goes stagnant. He said, it's much better to be a conduit for it to flow through. There's no need to hold on to it, because that's being in a place of lack. And when you're in a place of trust and abundance, whatever you need will come. No need to hoard it.
It'll happen when you need it to happen too. And that's a pretty radical trust right there. And,
right.
Venus and Salacia and Charoclo is very much about when you need it, it's coming. She's holding the space for whatever you need to come. And it's not just your need. It's like what's happening, with the people and the community. It's a joint creative process here. Yeah. Because you've talked so much about.
We both love Dandelion. Right, yeah. Exactly. And, I was just saying, we worked with Dandelion earlier this year, and Dandelion is very much for me the architect of that way of being, of that new earth sense of trust and not being in a place of lack and having to hold on to things to remember them or to somehow keep them. It's like, no, this is a way to be a channel and a conduit through which life, the universe and everything can pass through us, and we can experience it without the need to hold on to it. And I think that that's also a new way of being that's very difficult for humans to let go of into, and it can be a frightening experience. But once you've gone through it and you've shed those skins and you've been stripped down to the essential you, then you can start to really go, oh my gosh, I want to live my life differently. I want to not be holding on to so much. I don't want to have mountains of stuff to somehow justify my existence here on the planet. I want to be a free-flowing being who can move through the oceans of consciousness in a much more fluid, unbounded way. And I think that's really what 2023 is going to offer many of us who are in that space to receive.
Yeah, we're moving on. So, get rid of all your stuff, get out of the closet, give it to people who need it, and you move on, and you're going to get what you need when on the way. That's what's happening.
Right. And, just one final sort of piece on some of the other energies that have been more challenging. I'm kind of on the one hand pleased, but also a little disappointed to see that square between Saturn and Uranus now moving off. I've quite enjoyed it. It's given me a lot to think about. It's certainly rattled a lot of structures, but I think in a positive way. And I think that's been a big part of the last couple of years, but also just seeing, you know, that south node in Scorpio edging its way through. It's just like, oof, it's been pretty heavy going, and it's still got a little while to go yet. And I'm not sure when do the nodes leave the Scorpio Taurus axis. It must be
Sometime in the summer.
Summer.
Sometime in the summer, but there is an April eclipse that's at like 2950 Aries Libra. But I'm happy enough with that. Uranus is still with the North Node, and that Saturn's getting ready to move into Pisces. And I love this one too, and we'll talk more about it like next moon cycle, I think, is Haumea as being visited by the nodes in the next couple of months, because the nodes go retrograde in their natural motion. So there's going to be, Haumea is going to be really, really, really active. And that the volcanoes erupted just after she went into Scorpio proves that she's with us. She's alive. She's happening.
Wow, that's an explosive thought. The South Node conjuncting Haumea in the first degree of Scorpio. I'm not quite sure how that could look, but it could be interesting. But it certainly feels like it could be the end of the piece that we've all been going through for the last couple of years. And
Pluto will be in Aquarius by then too.
Wow. So that's really all systems go. So much to chew on, and perhaps let's just take the charts down for the last wrap up on this Moons and Mythos show. As always, a lot to chew on. Thank you, Kelly.
I know, you evoke it too, David. You evoke these new thoughts. It's great.
Thank you. Well, you know, I have to say it's been a hugely rewarding experience doing these shows with you over the last few months, and already learning so much about all of the different KBOs, which is still new for you. It's new for me, and certainly in our own way, we're trying to share with all of you out there listening what we understand with these new quantum notes that are coming in, and it's all very new. And I think that this particular show is just emphasizing to everybody, including us, that we are on the cusp of something new. And do we embrace that, or do we shy away from it and go back inwards and try to keep everything out and try to keep it the same? Or do we say, to hell with it, man, I'm going to jump on my boat, I'm going to head west, and I'm going to see where I end up, and I've got my provisions, I've got my crew with me, my tribe are with me, and we're all in this together. And you know what, let's just set forth and see where do we go in the great pioneering spirit of the past.
Yeah, just choose one of these new Kuiper Belt objects. Just choose one of these new quantum and go with that, because we'll all end up in the same place. And yeah, a lot new is coming. And I'm so excited that Pam really got interested in these as well, and is adding to the you know, the research and the meaning. And I heard her say on your last seasonal talk that maybe astrology will change so much that we'll have to and I just had that same thought the other day. I had that same thought. So I may retire.
Maybe retire from what you've been doing before, but you're going to step into what you're now going to be doing.
That's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing. And that's part of it. Like, how is the energy shifting? And the characlo, what form best serves love? What best serves the energy that's coming in and that's, you know, moving us? So I really love that energy.
And I think, like I said, also, you know, even in my own work in the piece I did with Pam for the upcoming equinox, it's like it's radically making me rethink about how I work with plants, and also my colleagues like Pete that I work with in the transmissions, who's a traditional herbalist, but now is understanding from a quantum perspective the same as I am. It's like, wow, you know, we're dealing with powerful beings here who are not just plants that grow in the ground, but they're a very, very vast intelligence who are trying to share their wisdom with us, which again feels like the Pallas Athena energy, which is like new wisdom coming to us, which maybe we already have but had forgotten and are now just remembering. I think it's hugely exciting, and like Pam said, if we can be in a place of holding on to again, the explosions are going off here, if we can be in a place of not holding on to our profession because it's what we've invested 50 years of our life in or more or a bit less or whatever, and just be, hey, wow, I actually feel like I want to evolve myself and my work into a different space and embrace the change, be excited by it rather than afraid of it, right?
You know, that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn with Pluto, that's a great, and it's even that date on the new moon when the Mercury and the sun are aligning, fabulous days for communing with the plants, fabulous days.
Nice. Wow. So, you know, as we move into the final stages of what I think is really the end of the epoch, I've also kind of linked it often to the Lord of the Rings, and I've been tracking which part of the story we've been in. I feel very much now that we are into the final chapters, and the great battles have been fought, if we are aware of them, or if we can allow ourselves to believe that the energies are shifting. And what comes after that? Well, then there comes the celebration and the new world, of the new kind of era that's being ushered in, with more collaboration between the elves, the dwarves, the men, all of which, you know, representing
And
many
the
different
trees, the ants,
the
they
ends.
joined in. That was one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
And I often think the ants are like the yew trees, you know, they have almost the same energy as the yew. And so
Right, so ancient. Yes,
right,
wow.
I think actually Tolkien probably based the Ents on the yew trees, because he actually wrote some of Lord of the Rings in the area of Wales, where there's a lot of very, very ancient yew tree circles. And it's kind of interesting. I would love to have met Tolkien. I think he would have been a fascinating person to do an interview with, although maybe he wouldn't have fancied YouTube so much. But anyway, that aside, thank you, Kelly, as always. Is there anything you wish to add as a final comment, or also just to share where people can find out more about your work?
Well, happy holidays, everyone.
Right.
And we're in this together, and I'm joyful about the coming year, and I wish everyone the best. And my website's the best place to find me. Helia, Helia, that's the female sun, heliastar.com.
Wonderful. And of course, you have some really interesting books on Black Moon Lilith. And I feel like Lilith is going to be a character that's going to be coming more and more into our awareness as the coming months are upon. And I'm excited to find out more about that energy, because we've got this new portal energy space that opens up, that we can really start to I wouldn't say experiment with, because that sounds a little maverick and dangerous, but we can start to explore. And, you know, I think this full moon energy that we just talked about, with that powerful opposition to Pluto at that time with the other energies, is a really great example of how we can work with these windows, these kind of astrological windows, to ignite or initiate new seed, new seedings even.
Yeah, there's one comment I just want to add this in. I read an astrologer talking about the difference between the black moon, the mean and the true. He said, the mean black moon, the average motion, is what you think your issues are, but the true black moon is what your issues really are. And those portals we've been looking at is where those two things align.
Wow.
That's
just
an interesting.
Say that one more time, because I think it's really important. Just to reiterate
the
that.
mean black moon is what you think your issues are, but the true black moon is what they really are. And the closer they are, the more aligned they are.
It's making me think about like what you actually need and what you think you want, and how sometimes you bring what you need and what you want to be a place of being exactly the same thing. What I want is what I need. And I feel that's when you come into a place of alignment, you know?
Yes, exactly. Very similar to that whole dilemma. And also the difference between believing and knowing. Because knowing is certainty, believing just has a little doubt in there. You know, it's not absolute knowing. I believe it, you know. So that there's such interesting nuances. Yeah.
They are. And I think they're ones worth meditating on at length during this next few weeks, is like, what do I truly know and what do I believe? Because you're right, they're not the same thing. And if you know it, you know it. And if you believe it, well, it feels like it's coming from somebody else, maybe. And maybe it's their belief system you've incorporated.
Yes.
Maybe it's true for you too. Maybe not. But these things are all worth investigating. And I feel that we've been given these new windows of opportunity way of looking at some of the astrology, and with these KBOs, which are, you know, as you just said, you know, Pam is also bringing into her work. I found that very interesting. Yesterday, a lot of the energy we talked about for the solstice was working with some of the things that we've been talking about here on this show and exploring, and I feel that that's only going to grow. So that's where our pioneering work, I think, and part of my new earth prayer is resting, is in looking at astrology and plants and mind magic, infusing all of these things into something that gives us a tangible working model of how to manifest from 5D down into 3D.
Cosmic and earth, you know, aligning those energies and embodying those energies. Yeah, we're on a ride.
For sure. Well, we're on our boat. We're heading off into the great unknown. And when the boat lands in the new year, we'll get to step out onto our new Earth landmass, and we'll get to play. I think we're going to get a beautiful creative board on which to design a new Earth. And as long as we're not getting pulled into those other unhelpful frequencies of the old paradigm, then the world is our oyster for us all to share and play in together.
Yeah.
And I think that's really
I heard you say, don't get entangled in the negative stuff. And that's absolutely so. Just let it go. It's not, you don't have to deal with it. It's not your timeline. It's not where you need to be. It's not, you know, all of that. Just be as clear and centered in that Aries, like integrity. You don't need to be pushed off that or wiggled out, you know, don't cave in.
Right. And I'm just thinking, for those people out there who are super keen and want to make the most of these alignment days with the Black Moon Lilith, try to get hold of some mugwort tea and have a nice cup of that, or some mugwort tincture, and just really call in that intention of realignment of the Artemises, particularly mugwort, so that we can be completely aligned and make the most of these beautiful opportunities. So let's wrap things up there for today. For those of you who are watching the show for the first time and maybe not heard about my work either, please do check out quantumplанthealing.com, where we've been running a series of plant diet immersions with Kelly and other teachers over the course of the last 6 months. Really powerful transformational experiences that I think have caught all of us a little bit by surprise. And I've been working with plants for years, and I've definitely gone through some big changes. So I want to thank you again, Kelly, for your input into those, because we just did a nice piece for the U talking about Saturn, which is very much linked to the U energy, but also very much linked to the Lemurian otherworld energy. So maybe that's something we'll talk about a little bit after the immersion, because I feel like Saturn moving into Pisces is a big thing, and I want to explore that more in future shows. So thank you again, Kelly. I look forward to seeing you on the U immersion in the next few days. And for all of you out there, we wish you a very wonderful new moon, a very wonderful Capricorn solstice, and if we don't see you before, some kind of happy new year too, however you celebrate that energy. And we'll see you all again for a Moons and Mythos in a few weeks' time. For now, take care, everybody. Have a good holiday season, and yeah, ciao for now. Take it easy.